The Netherlands is the world's main producer of commercial tulip plants, producing 4.3 billion tulip bulbs each year, some 53% of which, 2.3 billion, are made into cut flowers. The Dutch were the first to publish their catalogs in the language of the country receiving them, creating even greater interest and demand, coupled with a sales force, cheap prices, reasonable payment plans, reliable delivery, and free demonstration gardens. It's easy to see how they captured the trade. If Holland is famous for its hybrid tulips, it's Central Asia that is the epicenter of wild tulips. Tulips are familiar to millions worldwide, but very few people have had the opportunity to see them growing in their original natural habitat. So let me take you to where tulips grow wild, in the largest Eurasian country of their origin. Welcome to Kazakhstan. Tulips are native to some of the most remote places on Earth, on hard to reach mountain ridges and barren steppes. If you really wanted to see tulips in the wild, you would need to be able to ride a horse. Wild tulips, the forebears of the hybridized versions we see today, still grow throughout Central Asia. This is what wild tulips look like blooming in Kazakhstan. So the spread of the tulip was gradually westward from the eastern steppes of Eurasia, following the Silk Road. Eventually, Constantinople, now Istanbul, became the city of tulips and the center for distributing the bulbs. The red flowers of this tulip, shown here growing at 1,300 meters or 4,300 feet in southern Kazakhstan, are the size of your fist. Locals often sell the flowers along the sides of roads that may once have been part of the Silk Road, the network of trade routes that connected Europe and the Far East for hundreds of years. The tulip was apparently pretty good at spreading itself. These yellow tulips were originally native to Italy, but they made their way via old trading routes to other parts of Western Europe. In Germany, this yellow beauty grows along the steep slopes of vineyards, and in Norway, it can be found near seaports. Ships in centuries past carried soil as ballast. At the end of a voyage, the soil was often dumped near the port, and sometimes there was buried treasure in the soil, as in bulbs. How often in our own gardens do we see something coming up and we have no idea how it got there? The first true tulip fanatics were the sultans of the Ottoman Empire, which at its zenith in the 16th and 17th centuries stretched from Morocco to the Caspian Sea and from Yemen to Hungary. In their lavish palaces in Constantinople, the sultans collected and displayed the riches of their empire and treasures secured through trade. Tulips were among these treasures, and they were bred extensively and planted in large numbers in the palace gardens. Sultan Mehmed II, often called Mehmed the Conqueror, at the age of 21, conquered Constantinople, modern-day Istanbul, in 1453, and he brought an end to the Byzantine or predominantly Christian empire. He was clearly a fan of horticulture. Following the conquest of the city, he began building the Topkapi Palace, which was decorated with thousands of tiles featuring a profusion of tulip motifs. He planned pleasure gardens around the palace with streams and fountains, pavilions linked by rows of poplars, and of course, masses of flowers. It is said that he had so many flowers in his 12 gardens that he required a staff of 920 gardeners. He lived there until his death in 1481. It was under Suleiman the Magnificent, the great grandson of Mehmed and the 10th Sultan, that the tulip began to be cultivated. Here is a picture of Suleiman the Magnificent with his tulip-like turban. The name tulip is thought to be derived from the Persian word for turban, which it may have been thought to resemble. And this explains my headgear. So how did the tulips escape from the Ottoman Empire and find their way to the Netherlands? Sultan Suleiman the Magnificent gave some tulips to a man called Ogier Ghislain de Busbecq, the Viennese ambassador to the Ottoman Empire. He was a 16th century Flemish writer, herbalist, and diplomat in the employ of three generations of Austrian monarchs. He also wrote in enormous detail about the plant and animal life he encountered in Turkey. The first tulips were planted in the Netherlands in 1593 in Leiden, and by the beginning of the 17th century, the tulip was starting to be used as a garden decoration, and it soon gained major popularity as a trading product, especially in Holland. The interest for the flowers was huge, and bulbs were sold for unbelievably high prices, leading to what we know today as tulip mania. Tulip mania has long been a source of wonder for historians and laymen alike. Stories have been circulating for nearly 400 years about the apparently strange compulsion that led otherwise sensible merchants, nobles, and artisan weavers to spend all they had and more on tulips, only to land in bankruptcy and ruin when the bottom fell out of the market in February of 1637. Anyway, that's what we've always believed. In addition to the sultans, the manias, the high steppes of Kazakhstan, my full talk also looks at the tulip industry today in Holland. Usually, the period from March through May is the Dutch flower industry's strongest season. It pulls in 7 billion euros or $7.6 billion dollars, with an average of $30 million dollars in flowers sold daily. Tulip growers put their wares up for sale starting in March when the flowers begin to bloom. Tulip season usually lasts only about 8 weeks. Arguably, the largest and most spectacular spring garden is Keukenhof, located in Lies, Holland, close to Amsterdam. But last year, because of Holland's anti-coronavirus measures, the park was shut down from its scheduled opening day, March 21st, until its scheduled closing date, May 10th, costing an estimated $25 million dollars in lost revenues. In addition to showing you Keukenhof and the surrounding bulb fields, my full lecture also showcases several British gardens known for their tulip displays, and one garden seen here is no longer in existence, making it a secret garden of the past. Why? Because I live in Cape Town now, and this was my garden with its annual show of fabulous tulips. I do hope you will consider joining me for the full program.